All right, everyone. Hello. This is Daniel Guys. I'm the creative and technical director here at ED Films. We're doing another unofficial live stream. My official stream is on Wednesday at 1 o'clock Eastern Daylight Time or Eastern Standard Time. I think we're probably in Standard Time now because of the shift in the time period. But anyways, daylight savings or whatever. But not all of you have to deal with that. Okay, so what we're going to do today is we are going to use some of the brushes and various other assets from our ED Films store. So I'm pimping out the store a little bit today. If you go to edfilms.net, you can go to the shop and grab some brushes or whatever you're looking for. There's a whole bunch of animated elements and brushes and other things that I use all the time for all of our projects. And today we're going to be looking at some of the brushes from the Nature Mega Pack. So we'll be pulling a bunch of stuff from those to flesh out the scene and probably be using some of the industrial brushes, and we'll definitely be using some of our plants and flowers and grass animated elements. So we have these here, and these are sort of things that I've rendered out of Maya that can be put into a scene to bring some extra life to it once it's in After Effects. So I don't think we'll get this far in this video, but we'll see how far we get. Usually these videos are a lot slower than I like. But so it goes. So essentially, we're going to take this scene and start coloring it and fleshing it out a little bit. And this was painted mostly, or actually, I think almost entirely. Hey, Shivam, Bora, welcome to the stream. This was painted almost entirely in Rebel. So now, it's pretty flat. It's pretty dead looking. So we're going to use a bunch of different things to clean this up and make it look cooler. And also possibly add some elements. Well, we do need to add some elements like moss and other things like that. And so right now, things are looking pretty bleak. So the first thing to maybe address on this will be some of the contrast issues. And I'm building this so that it can be brought into After Effects or Maya or both to give it a little bit more depth. But for now, we have to start cleaning it up. So this may not be super fun, but it will be, it's what we got to do. So what I've done is I've taken these paintings that I've done in Rebel and saved them as a PSD file. And now you can see they've got layers to them and the paper to them. So now what I have to do is I've put these all in folders, sort of like what we were doing yesterday. And I have to give them a little bit more, I sort of have to adjust everything. Now right now they're kind of a warmish gray color, but that's all going to change. But I think the first thing we're going to do is start adding some light and dark values here just to start breaking things up. So the brush I'm using right now is actually included in the Nature Pack. So if I go here, this is the ED Films Nature, well, says sampler, but this is not the one I made. There's a texture painting brush right here. And that's largely just for filling in details, broad details. And if you put kind of a low flow rate on it, you get a nice texture to it. I don't know if that's quite obvious because we're inside of this layer. I'll make it a bright orange so you can see kind of what it is. I think this brush is given away, well, at least the tip of it is given away in Photoshop or something. I'm not sure. Everybody seems to have this brush, but I've just modified it a little bit. Okay, so we're going to go in here and we're going to go down to the bottom. I think I've added a new layer and we're going to just pull some light colors from here, staying within roughly the color spectrum or the color hue range that we've been working in this project already. Because once we get coloring, we kind of want to have something a little bit consistent. At least I think we do. I don't know. I'm always trying to figure this stuff out. Feels like from scratch every time I do it. But the main thing I want to do is just bring out the lightness of these rocks to start so that we have some good areas of contrast. So let's just do this really quick. It may be a little too light because I'm losing my white values on my rocks, but that's okay. We can always go back in and do more. You could do something like this entirely in Rebel, but I'm a little bit clumsy with color, so I like to have a little bit of space to experiment with. There we go. And we've kind of assigned the lighting setup is a little bit back and to the right. So as you can see, most of these objects, I've done this like kind of back corner lighting. So maybe we'll just put this in really quick. I'll just use a really bright horrifyingly ugly color. Yeah. So the lighting is kind of like this. So it's back from the top right and kind of towards into the scene. So we have a little bit of a back edge light on everything. So we're going to keep that in mind while we paint and flesh everything out. So we'll just lock that for now. So there you go. You can see I'm already adding some light layers. I think I might also clean up this alpha. So for cleaning up alphas, you can use a lot of different techniques. You can use like an eraser, or you can use just your actual brush and just choose a black color. I usually like to make something that's really hard opacity. So I've made a couple, well, I did have a couple for cleaning up edges on things. So I have this like really hard edge brush that I use, and you just want to make sure that your flow's maxed out. And this way I can kind of clean up this stuff a lot easier, right? And I guess if you want to just look at the brush settings, I've got, I should have transfer off, but there is transfers on this one, but I believe it's just a bit of, oh, it does have pen pressure, but I think because it has noise on it or something, I can't remember why. It could be the dual brush thing, but anyways, you'd probably want to turn transfer off. This makes it so you don't make any mistakes where you might have these like slightly opaque areas showing through. You want to be really careful with that. So, and also let's do this really quick. We're going to put a solid color behind this. This is just part of having to clean stuff up. An unfortunate aspect of making anything. Hello from France. Calixium. Oh, thanks so much for the compliments. I really appreciate that. Hopefully you can catch us in another stream, but thank you. I really appreciate the compliment. That's a lovely sentiment. Thank you. Good luck at work today. Okay. So I'll try to make this so it's not utterly boring, but unfortunately, most of the streams I do are probably going to be boring for most people. So the one thing we can do here also, it's just something to think about, is if we want to keep some of these neat little edges and splats and stuff that are happening, what we can do is we just do this blocking onto the paper itself, and what you can do then is take the actual drawing and put it above. And therefore, then you'll keep your little edges and your little splats and stuff like that. So that's something I usually like to do because it makes just a more interesting object. So I'm going to just call this rocks ground FG for foreground. And I'm going to keep erasing this off. There's lots of ways you could do this. You could use the lasso tool, or, there's a million and one things to do here. We'll try to be fast, although I'm never really that fast for some reason. Seem incapable of being fast. Okay, we're almost there. I don't mind these little floating specks and stuff for now. We'll see. They may show up weird in After Effects and look bad. Something we have to be wary of, because sometimes stuff like that just sits on top of the scene weird, and even though it looks cool as a still, it looks bad when things are in motion. Okay, so we've done the edge on that. That's cool. It's pretty good for now. We've got our little light patches, so I'm going to just call this light right now. And then let's just go back to, let's grab our texture brush from up here. Cool. Okay. So we've got some lights in here. I might push the lights even further. We'll see. A little bit on some of these. Eventually we'll paint some shadows and stuff in. But for when we're painting lights and darks, let's get rid of this so we can actually see what we're doing. You can usually do a pretty good mix between like a really natural medium and Photoshop. I find that it's not impossible to get a good balance between the two. Okay, and we probably want to start looking at color pretty quick here, because we don't get too far along and not have much control of the color of our light. want to be careful though of keeping some shadows here. So I'm just going to grab my eraser, which my eraser is the same brush. I'm using the same exact brush, the texture brush, see? With a lower flow and 100% opacity. Hey Pramod, welcome to the stream. I don't know if you, I put up those brushes in the folder. I just put them up this morning. And I put a link on the stream for anyone who's interested in the brushes we used yesterday. I'm just going to put a little light here. I might bring the opacity down just a bit. Because this is like a low area here. The light would be catching right here. So there's nothing to really block the light at this point. Yeah, I did, Pramod. It looks great. I'm going to use it. Thank you for that. Can you send your PSD? Do you have the PSD? Because I think the colors are great. I'll just, actually, I was just looking at it a few moments ago. Let me see if I can pull it up again. I was just on the Google Drive and I just saw it. Bear with me for 1 second. Done. I think it was under right here. Yeah, so I did see it. Looks good. I like the colors. They're awesome. So if you're cool sending that along, that'd be amazing. Or did you already put the PSD in there? I don't know if you did. I wasn't actually. I should check that because I'm being a little bit ridiculous. I didn't even look. Let's have a look here. It's a PNG, right? It's not a Photoshop. But send along the Photoshop if you think of it. Where are we? Okay, we're here. No, we're not here. Where are we? I've lost the live stream. There we go. Oh, you painted on the PNG file. Well, cool. Okay. Well, that's fine because I can just use that as reference then. No problem there. Okay, I'm just going to put a bit of shadow back here on this one, just a bit. Okay, so now that we've got some rock bright lights and darks here, I might lighten this up a little bit here. Seems a little weirdly dark. Let's throw, I want to start getting some color in here and throw on some mosses and stuff. So we want to flesh all of this out. Let's just quickly check the comp size. I don't think it's super huge. What are we at? We're at 46, so about 4,500 wide. It's meant to kind of, it's not a 4K production. I tried to go for something a little bit smaller and more manageable. Let's lighten this part up here. Cool. Okay. Looks like, is there something there? Okay. And a bit here. Cool. Okay. So let's go and put some color on top of this. There's a couple of ways we could do this. Now this should, I believe this has a color tint to it. If we were to completely desaturate this, yeah, it's got a kind of a pinkish color to it. So we'll probably just do the whole thing and we'll do a color tint on it. And then, or we could actually paint color. That's another option. I never find that works super well for me. I tend to like to work more with an overlay. So if I were to imagine, well, I guess we maybe want to find a reference photo for our colors. But say we're going to like do mossy ground and stuff like that. Maybe we'll find a reference because I'm a little nervous about not having any color reference for my moss and stuff because I'll end up coloring it like a grade schooler, like green for moss and gray for rocks. I think we have to be a little more nuanced than that. But we'll just start a little bit here. Usually I like to use overlay because overlay includes a bit of light value to it. So if you were to do an overlay, this is like pretty flat, but you can push the lighting a lot better. You can't do that with color. But we can start with color and then go to overlay after, or do an overlay layer after. But first, let's go find like a mossy picture for reference. Mossy rocks forest. I don't know how green we want to go. We might want to go something a little more subdued like this. These are cool colors. That's too green for me. I think that's like way too mystical, magical. I want to go something a little more realistic or a little more grounded. Not realistic, but a little more muted. Like a fall, this kind of color might be cool. Let's just copy this for now. Okay, we'll just drop it in, bonk. I suppose we could totally cheat and just like, this is one thing you can do, which is probably awful. Let's try it though. This is probably the worst thing we could ever do. No, it's not. Nothing wrong with cheating. So this is putting a color layer right on top using an already existing image, which might be kind of neat. I mean, these rocks clearly have moss all over them, but, and then what we could do is just blur this out a lot. It can kind of give us it could give us a bit of a foundation color to work with. I know it's totally cheating, but like, that's why we use computers, isn't it? This red is a little too spicy, so we can just take this sponge here and desaturate it a little bit. There we go. Cool. Okay, so we're off to some kind of a start. Not to say it's the best thing in the world, but it's certainly better than that. Okay, so we'll just put this back to color. And we could just start pulling from this, really. So we kind of want this area to be, want the moss to creep up on stuff for sure. So let's just have a look at what our color ranges tend to be. So the moss on the backside of rocks is like a brownish color here. And then once we're more in the sunlight, they get kind of like this bright yellowy color. So we could have some of our rocks with moss on them. And then as we get, and then a few of them nice and gray like this one. I like that bit of gray in there. That's cool. So let's just pull this off. We're really cheating hardcore here, but who cares? You know, I don't know. Who cares? And then once we've, so you can see that too, is like if you look here, these bright reds are creating a bit of a warmth here. It's browning those rocks out quite a bit. Even that moss is picking up a little bit of that brown from the light. Let's put this here. We'll neutralize some of these greens. We'll let some of this dark patchy stuff here be kind of green. Okay. We're pretty monochromatic at the moment, but we will evolve. Okay. Usually, I guess the rule of thumb for this, and I know I've probably said it a million times before, is that as your greens are out of the sunlight, they're going to adopt a little bit more of the blue or the ambient shade of the space. So we'll probably naturally move a little bit more to cool greens and gray as they get out of sunlight. So these guys here that are all tucked away in here would be a lot grayer, or, I mean, in this picture, they're quite a bit browner. So we could just go with that, but because they're out of sunlight. But what I usually like to do is cool them off a little bit, but we'll just brown them a bit. For now, we'll do browns, kind of, the backlighting. And anything in the sun will kind of green it up. Oh, Pramod, I am working on, I have to do a little quick video for the store, for the stuff on the store. So I'm building a kind of a tutorial around using the brush assets from the store. I have to take a break on my film for a little bit to focus on this stuff. So I'm showing a little bit of like the idea of taking a painting and using some of our store brushes and stuff like that to add some extra detail and life to it. I was going to do a painting from scratch, but I feel like it just takes way too long. There's a nice cool green. I mean, we could go in our shadowed areas. We could go all the way to stuff like this. Let's just see how that looks. Yeah, it's too cool. We could, another color I like to use when I'm working with mosses is kind of a purple. But that's too much here as well. I could bring it in, or I think it needs to go cooler than that. No, it's way too. Let's try this, pink. Pink's always nice on the green because it's such a nice complement. So essentially, Pramod, with this one, what we're going to do is we're going to take this image and clean up its values and give it a little bit more life, and then we're going to bring it into After Effects and stuff, and use some of our assets to get things going. Now, I like having some cool rocks here, even though I guess these rocks would be. Right now they're in sunlight. Technically, if this was close to them, they might be in shadow, but I kind of want to keep some of the cool. So let's just cool. We'll use a little bit of warmth on it, but not too much because I like the gray a little bit there. And maybe some of these rocks that are more in shadows, we can kind of do the gray. This gray is coming from this water, but it's a nice little accident that we would have some in there. It's kind of nice to see. A little bit of gray in there. Cool. It's a pretty good little cheat. There we go. I'm not going to kill this red off entirely. I'm going to just override it for a second, and then I'll pop some back in. So we can even use like little speckles and stuff to bring it back in. This texture brush is pretty versatile, and it's relatively fast. Okay. That looks pretty good. We got some color back in there. It's all right. So what I'll do now is we'll do an overlay pass, okay? So we've done a color pass. So I guess we could have just a look at what that looks like. It's a giant mess. That's what it looks like. It's horrible. It looks horrible. Okay, so we've done this. So now let's go in and we can do a bit of an overlay. We may be a little bit premature on this, but with the overlay pass, we can start adding like light values to things. Now with this, I should probably include this layer here. So let's actually do our overlay like this, and like that. So now it's like including the pen strokes in everything. Our sunlight, let's suppose, I guess our sunlight is a warmish color. Maybe not this warm though, it's a little too warm. Not very related to this stream, but I think you've got the knowledge. Currently working with short film story structure. What would you say is the most important when building a story? Actually, it's funny, Zaitim, I don't know how to say your name actually, or maybe you want it said each letter, Xaitam. I really struggle with story. I've been working on it a lot. I'm getting better with it, I think. But I'd say like some of the key things to focus on, which I think a lot of us forget, especially if you come from more of an animation background, is the characters' motivations. I'd say like we've been working on this project, Elemented, for a while, and one of the things that has really not been coming through is the character's motivations. Like, why is your character doing something? The other thing, I guess, and that's the other thing to actually, one of the key things I would say is maybe not even the motivation, but more of like where the character starts and where they finish. And I was just talking to a guy, he was working with us on story stuff, and what he was saying, which was really fascinating, is he said that as an actor, he went to acting school, and he basically said that in every scene, your character should start out in one emotional state and end in a different emotional state. So what was interesting about that is that he's basically saying you always need an arc, and the arc is what makes things interesting, right? So without an arc or without some kind of evolution, it's not interesting. So if your character, it's kind of a little bit like it depends on like what camp you lie in with the Star Wars movies. But if you look at Rey, for instance, one of the criticisms, or even a little bit of Harry Potter, Harry Potter's evolution is very slow. It's interesting. What's interesting is a lot of the things that evolve around him. But anyways, what happens with Rey a little bit is that she kind of starts out as a really good person, just wanting to do the right thing, and she doesn't really change or deviate too much from that. And there's nothing that really shatters her perspective other than the fact that the Force isn't what she expected and Luke Skywalker is not what she expected. So these are not like definitely super clear motivations. Like the main thing, I guess, for her was she wanted to stay home on the planet waiting for her family, sort of like Luke Skywalker wanted to, but then he was sort of forced to leave. The thing I suppose when we were dealing with our story, the message is important, but the message is a little bit falls under theme a little bit too, though, right? Because if you have a strong message but you don't have good characters, no one's going to stick around to get the message, and your characters don't always have to be supporting the message. They could actually be quite against the message. I mean, I don't know. I'm not an expert on this at all. So like Pramad's got some good points too. Like I think you want to hear as many people's perspectives as possible. But I do think character motivation is important. Like I guess I'll give an example for our character that we were using in our story we were doing is she just didn't feel like there was a reason for her to do what she was doing, and she started out too She was just trying to save her colony. When it's like, why would she want to do that? Like, what was the motivation? What was the thing that drove her? And I think it's just a big question to ask. And I'm not sure. Again, I'm not 100% sure the best way to go about it, but that's what I can tell you for now. I don't know if that's helpful. Motivation, huge. Why are they doing what they're doing? How do they change? And that's the other thing too, is like their worldview. So what is their view going in to the story? So let's say like Rey from Star Wars, for instance, her worldview, I guess, is that one day her family's. I don't actually know. Maybe I shouldn't use that as an example because I'm not really that well versed in the Star Wars films. But it's sort of okay. So if you had a character, let's say, well, you could say like American politics, for instance. Maybe they start out as a really avid Democrat, and they're really, really super into being a Democrat, and then something breaks their perspective on being a Democrat or what that means, and all of a sudden now they start shifting towards being a conservative, right? And maybe their family's all really Democrats, and their kid is suddenly this main character is becoming a conservative, and that's causing all kinds of friction, and then that becomes more interesting because now there's friction in the family, there's natural conflict there as they have two opposing worldviews. Maybe they both are trying to achieve similar ends, but they look at the way of doing them as differently. I guess maybe that's a really bit of an obvious example, but it is something that kind of motivates them to butt heads. Like a weak storyline can be like, well, this character's there's a bad character, and then there's these good characters, and the character is just bad for the sake of being bad. Another thing I learned last week was that try to keep things really simple. There's a tendency for writers and for animators and stuff, we make our stories too complicated. We're like all excited about all the little workings, the inner workings of the world, and we forget about how important the actual story is, or we forget the key story, which is the thing that people are most interested in isn't world building. World building helps. People are most interested in the characters themselves and their human experiences, because most of us are human and we seem to be really attracted to the human experience. So what are your characters experiencing? What are their conflicts? Are they embarrassed? Are they brave? Are they curious? All those things matter way more than whether they live in space or whether they live underwater or whether they're on a pirate ship. All those, the setting becomes kind of irrelevant. It's just a backdrop for the actual experiences and the interpersonal conflicts that the characters might have with one another. So I hope that's helpful. I don't know. You can fuel the questions more. Like anyone, feel free to chime in. Like Pramod's got some good points too. Theme is also very important. I have a book I'm reading right now. It's called The Art of Story, which is helping me quite a bit in storytelling because I still struggle immensely. Okay, so that being said, we've now colored a little bit. It's not great. Like this is not amazing. But we can start tweaking some of this. So one thing I might do is, because this is a very black and white painting, let's just do we might do like a gradient map, on this black and white painting, on this layer here. So let's go in here and have a look at what we get. It's right there. So let's just reverse this, I suppose. Okay, I want to take my blacks from being black because black isn't really a color I want in this that much. Like we can kind of tone it down a little bit. Or the other option is I could actually color on top of it, but let's just go, right, these are all mixed up. This color should be our white, which we can push more to here. I'm just experimenting. I'm not sure if this is going to work. Okay, so I'm going to push my blacks to more of a bluish color for sure. See, that helps kind of bring that down a little bit. Okay, so you're a student. I don't have any background experience. Oh, well, thanks for even listening. But do ask a lot of people, because there's a lot of different. I found I've had to learn several times over and over and over about what makes a good story and what makes a compelling character. And it's just something you just have to keep learning over and over. I feel like it really depends. Some people take really naturally to storytelling. We all have the capacity to tell stories, but not all of us are as intuitive with our ability to tell a story. So I kind of, yeah, I struggle a little bit on that end for sure. Okay, so let's just see what this has done. So we've lost a little bit of contrast, but I do like that it's a bit bluer. So let's just, we'll go back in here again. We can crush this one down more, maybe. I'm increasing the saturation and dropping this, and then let's go here, and we'll put a little more blue in it, but we will darken it and bring it up slightly. The best way to like start with a ramp gradient like this adjustment is make sure if this position, so the position's at 20, so let's put it at 25. Whoops. If the position's at 25, your brightness, if you want it to be like on spectrum properly, should be around 25. And then this one, if this is at roughly 50, you want your brightness to be around 50. And then you'll be kind of in the ballpark of what the original colors were. Although I feel like we're a little bit off, and it looks that way too. Kind of want that to be lighter. Cool. I mean, it's looking better. It's lost a bit of contrast, but I don't mind that. I feel like it's better. Up. All right. Pramad's got some good points. Okay, so now we're going to move into making some moss and stuff. Yeah, that's okay. So Pachelevic, you're saying, but your black can be 0% brightness only if it is pure black. I agree. I have a lot of fairly pure blacks in it. I think if I'm understanding what you're saying, like this color could be complete black, and that will put it back to more what it is. I don't really want it complete black. I'm finding like it's too dark as it is. We could also try some other colors. Purple might be a little bit nicer to work with. Instead of blue, I might want to go a little warmer, like purple color. I'll desaturate a little bit. I kind of like that better because we can always push our darks down again with another pass. Cool. That looks kind of sweet. So you see, I feel like we've come a long way from what that was. I don't have an example of what it used to look like. Not easily anyway. What is that? Right. So that's those. And then we've got this. So that's kind of, and this. So that's sort of what it used to look like before we started. And then like, I'll just step through it real quick. We first added some lights to give us some contrast. Then we added some color. And then we added some highlights like with the overlay. And then we did this kind of gradient map on it, which we'll have to bring some darks back in. But I just want to, I think right now we're at a good place just to move to the next step, which is adding in some mosses and things like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this mossy in the plant folder of the nature pack. There's this mossy clump. I use this thing like crazy. We'll make a new layer to start. And we might just like add, I'm going to see, I'm not sure how this is going to work. So I've got these like really nice alphas I can do. Oh wait, whoops, I put it in the wrong place. We need to put it up here. So this will just sit right over top, just for now, because I'm just trying to get a feel on stuff. But this little mossy brush set can be really nice for getting in little detailed mosses. I mean, we could do it behind the rocks too. I'm not really sure. I'm going to feel this out and figure something out. Oh, also, by the way, sorry, welcome to the stream, Pachelevic. Sorry, I'm not ignoring you. I'm just preoccupied. So I use this brush. I'm still trying to figure this out. It may not be the right way to go. I'm not sure. But I feel like, well, let's see here. We've got this rocks and foreground piece. This is here. So we need to do this really quick. I need to group these together just so it's like one giant piece. And just so I can move it around and have a look at it. Maybe we'll block stuff in because I feel like it's a pretty messy foreground piece, but now that we've colored it, it's kind of got like a sloppiness to it that's maybe not ideal. Not sure. But to remedy that, we could bring in some lighter areas. Just not quite sure what the best way to do this is. So I just need you guys to bear with me for a little bit. Because I want to get the details up. So normally how I would do this is I would paint an alpha channel kind of in the areas that I want to add things. I just want to add little parts of things. We don't have to do it all everywhere equally. We could just do little areas and paint those and then erase them off. So something that took me a while to really learn is that I can use my eraser more. I tend to neglect it a little bit. Okay, so we're just going to add some little mossy things here and there, just for like little pockets of moss detail. And especially in areas that I don't really like what's happening. There's a couple of areas I don't like what's happening that much. So I'll just kind of work on them a bit. So I'm adding these moss things. And then what I can do is I'll crank my eraser up. Kind of just erase them where we don't want them anymore. Like there. Okay, there. We'll just kind of merge that a little bit. We'll see if this works. This might not work very well, but I'm going to try. Okay, so I'm putting my eraser down to 30%, kind of scrubbing this away a bit. We'll do the same thing here. Let's start at 0, this rough edge, and let's grab the texture brush. Oh, well, let me use it as an eraser. Ugh, I hate how the new Photoshop does that. Hey, Jake Ellis, welcome to the stream. Thank you for your support and encouragement. I'm glad you're a fan of the stream, because if you weren't, it would be a terrible thing to have to experience, I think. It's fairly slow and boring, I know that. Okay, so I don't know if this will work, because I just tried this thing where I've erased off the bottom. I don't usually do this, but I'm just curious. So we're going to grab the brush, and we're going to use our texture brush again. And what I want to do is just take some of these colors. I just want to try to find some of these colors and fix a couple things. A little more life to this. I feel like things got really flat and mooky. And I can merge this back into its other layers just by like painting some of the colors of the surrounding area. I could also import the texture or bring the texture of the underpainting into it. I'm not really sure. I'm not sure all the different lengths will go to try to make this better. Are any of you guys using the new Photoshop? Oh, hey, well, thanks for coming to hang out all the way from Kenya. What time is it in Kenya? Are you in Kenya right now? I have not ever been to Kenya. But it's nice to have you joining us. I appreciate the support. That's awesome. Okay, we kind of need to shadow this a little bit because there's all this backlighting here. So let's try to see if we can. We'll put this like this. I don't want it to get so muddy. It's kind of getting muddy. So we need a little bit more color in here. Okay, that's okay. See, we're getting a little bit of nice details there. So I didn't start this painting thinking I would end up painting over top of it like this. I just have been finding, I don't know, I just kind of want to experiment with like what we can do with what we have. I don't know. Who knows? Okay, so because this moss isn't in direct light, it should be a little bluer and cooler because it's facing up to the sky and grayed out. So if we want the light side for back-facing moss would be more kind of grayed out like that. Hey, hello from Belize. Oh my gosh, this is like the most international stream ever. It's amazing. This is amazing. Thank you for tuning in. Okay, so we're starting to get some of the stuff going on. Now, one thing we could do if we really wanted to is we could take some of the texture from the original rock layer, the rock painting, and put it in there. Whereas I think it's here. Yeah, this one. we could take that, and if we were doing like a moss overpaint, which we are, we could technically put that over top. Oh my goodness, what are we doing here? Okay, let's take this. I'm just going to group this. I'm not quite sure at the moment what I'm doing. I'm just trying to figure this out. Let's take these guys up here. So we could use this texture. Right now it's at normal. We could do like just a soft light. And I wrecked something here. What did I wreck? Just bear with me for 1 sec. I wrecked something. Probably because I duplicated that layer. There we go. Okay, so where's my moss layer? Right, it's right here. So we can put this on top just for now. And the only reason I'm thinking of that is just to give it a bit of that texture. And if we do like an overlay on it and just soften it up a little bit. So you'll see how that kind of pushes our moss back into the painting a little bit. And the cool thing about doing this little alt click thing, wherever I add moss, it's going to bring that texture back. So we can go back to our mossy clump. We can literally just start painting like moss stuff. And you see how it kind of, it smashes back in? It's not so foreign looking, which is cool, right? So that means we could go in here and actually just use some of these colors. Maybe we can make our moss less opaque. Let's put the flow to 30. And let's experiment a little bit with like different things here. I'm still learning. Like, I'm still figuring this out right now. I'm kind of just like, oh, just playing. Erase a bit of that off. Does that work? Does that eraser even work? Can we erase? Pretty sure we can. Yeah, there we go. Cool. So let's put like a darker moss here. That looks kind of weird. Cool. It's kind of fun. Feel like, well, it looks cooler for sure. We could use like a little. Let's give us a little color pop here. Okay. I might do like a bit. This, I don't like this like dark part. I don't like that dark line. I might just put that over. We're probably going to end up overworking one whole section and never get to anything. This is what always happens. Okay. Now that's like a super dark line down there, which will always be there because it's in the painting, but we're not going to see it, so it doesn't really matter. So let's just address up here a little bit. 7 p.m. I'm from Canada, yes. Yes, I am from Canada. I've been here all my life. Okay, so let's pop some light on here. Just a little bit. See if we can get this. Bring it up a little. I'm just trying to soften out some of, I'm just trying to like not soften out, but bring in some, I don't know, we need some like hard edges and lights and darks, and we gotta, just something that's not amazing about this, but we're kind of getting somewhere. This could use more light over here, so let's like space this up a bit. Works pretty good. Get some little color patches in there. We'll throw in some like, we'll throw in some kind of orange patches, and can even, if we want to, we could just sample from up here. If this specific picture was in the color realm that we wanted to live in, we could do that also. I find it's a tad saturated in those areas anyways. But it's cool. Like, we're kind of getting this neat feel. We don't have to overwork it like crazy. Well, thanks for coming. Thanks for tuning in from Kenya. It's great to have you, Jake Ellis. Or maybe that's probably not how you say him, Ellis. I'm sure it's, I don't really know. Just you can try to correct me, but my pronunciation is going to be garbage sauce, unfortunately. Okay, so that looks better. This should be darker here, possibly. Let's see what happens if I put a dark. Oh, it does come through. So let's just use maybe like kind of a purple dark. Put that right in there just a bit. And I'll erase it off right here. Okay, doesn't look horrible. I don't want to spend too much time on it. It looks kind of neat. It's a little more painterly, which is good. This one, oh no, what have I done? What did I do? Oh, I probably did that alt-click thing by accident. I accidentally murdered every layer. That's fine. Okay. I don't love this like weird grayed out thing that I did here, but I also don't like how dark that thing is. So we'll erase it off a little bit. I mean, technically, I guess it should be kind of dark, but I find it's like, well, we'll just get rid of that completely because it's not 100% working. Let me figure something else out. Yeah, it's like that pencil over top. It's not 100% my favorite thing in the world. I mean, it should be dark, but it feels like it's too dark. Okay, whatever. All right, I'm going to stop. Okay, so that's a little bit of that. This feels weird. I can't win. I just can't finish it. I want to get this lighter, little light patch here. Let's lighten that, a little more of that. Okay, let's try that. Cool. Okay, patches of moss and stuff. Great. Sort of looks better. It's a bit garbagey, but not horrible. Oh, there's more. I see more problems. I can't stop seeing problems. This moss brush I use on everything. It's a very cool brush. Especially for if you want kind of like little micro details. It's pretty sweet. And the texture brush. I use those like crazy, both of these. So this one I just want to bring this up a little bit because it's light, it's sky facing, so it should have some light to it. Like it shouldn't be deadly dark. Doesn't really matter what colors we use. Just darkening that little crease a bit. Okay, cool. Okay. So there, we've got some moss, we've got some rocks. I guess we could come back in and do some really hard, dark lines if we wanted to. Or we could bring the existing thing back on top. I'm not really sure. But that's one thing. So we've polished up this little area with the moss brush. So if we get close to things, it feels a lot nicer, I think. It's a little less muddy looking. Especially for a foreground piece. There's a little more stuff going on. It's not perfect. We could then go back in. I guess if I were to be like neurotic about things, you could come back in with this detail painter brush or whatever you like and start finding darks and stuff like that. Like finding some more darks and pushing things down a bit more. I'm not sure. I'd be careful. I'd be careful going too crazy because that's, like I said, I have a tendency to go crazy on everything. And I don't want to get too carried away in too many details. But there are some little areas that feel like they could use something. Possibly lights. See, it's just that there's like a lack of edges in this, a bit, I suppose. It's like nice hard edges. So it'd be something to kind of get back in. But I'm not sure if that's the way to go. Let's leave it for now. Let's not overwork it. It's kind of good. It's good enough. It's okay. It's not amazing, but it's not horrible. There's a couple little mushy areas that could use some popping here and there. This became a very complicated layer. I might just do one more. Let's just put an overlay on here and make it pretty intense. So let's see if I can pull in what does this do? Just to get some texture on this. Kill off. It's a bit mushy. I feel like this could be harder. I feel like we need something a little more solid there or something. It could be bluer. Just have to experiment until we find the right mix. I mean, it's already pretty dark. I don't know. I'm just not feeling it. There's something a little weird about it. All right. Well, we'll just leave it for now. I'm not sure what it is at this point, but it needs a bit of work. Just not sure what that work is. Is it dark? Is it light? I have no idea. This is kind of helping. The other thing I could do is I could take some of my rock brushes and stack them on here. There's just like stuff like this is like weird area. It's like it's kind of an unnatural weirdness. I'm not worrying about the outline right now. High DPI on my backgrounds. Well, DPI doesn't. I do if I'm doing it for print, but DPI doesn't tend to matter too much. I mean, DPI has a lot more to do with print. So for this one, for instance, if we go image size, the resolution in pixels per inch is 300. But if you put the pixels per inch to 72, so the pixels, the dimensions don't change. Like right now it's 4668 by 3347. If I do this, it will change, but what that's done is that's actually just resized the image down to 24%, right? So DPI is just how, when you print it, how many pixels are in an inch of paper, essentially. So it really doesn't matter. If you're making new images and you're using DPI as your like foundation point, I guess like what you would say here is if you were to go inches and it was 6.2 whatever inches by 0.76, at 300 DPI you would have 1800 pixels along the thing. But if I go to inches and I put it to 600 DPI, oh shoot, Control W, don't want to do that. I'll show you again, sorry. File new. So if I put this up to 600 DPI and I went to inches and I put this like to 6 inches, actually, no, this is weird. Just give me a second. I'm trying to figure this out. Pixels per inch. So we have 6 inches by 0.5. If we do pixels, look what it's become, 3600 by 300. It's weird that you have to jump back and forth to see it, but if I do let's do 100 DPI at 6 inches by half an inch, and when you go to pixels, and you can see it's very small. So DPI has everything to do with your inches, nothing to do with actual resolution of the composition. Oh, amazing! You actually used it. Thank you. I'm glad to hear that you used some of some of the tutorials and they actually worked for you. That's amazing. I'm always happy, really happy to hear stuff like that. That's awesome. And I'm sure, you know what? There's always new people learning, and I've definitely I'm doing less and less tutorials these days as I get busier and busier, so it becomes more and more valuable to have other people out there doing that kind of stuff to take up the charge. So in this in the nature pack, I have a bunch of builder rock objects, and these are kind of for things like this when you have a lot of moss and you want to start adding some rock details here and there. So this can be really a useful thing to work with. Let's just turn this off and look what it does. Help a little bit. This just be like a big mashup of mixed media. Let's go like this, lighten this up here. Okay, so we're gonna find a couple of little things that we can do here and see if we can make this work. This may not be the right painting for this. Thank you for sharing your story. That's awesome. It's very inspiring for me to hear that. Makes all the huge amounts of hard work worth it to me. Okay. Anyways, we could add a bunch of rocks like this since I have so many of these things. I also have these giant ones, which this looks weird because it's inversed. So for those ones, you want to use a reverse. So on the things, if I have a positive, if there's a little plus beside it, it means it's meant to be the darks. The darks it's like a positive image, so it's dark. If it's a negative, so if you have the negative image, that means it's the same picture, but it's the opposite lighting. So you want to use lights for it to make the rock look more realistic. And this is like a rock builder. So the thing you're supposed to do with these ones is if you wanted to create like big rock cliffs and stuff like that, or a big pile of rocks, you can kind of jam them together like this. And then you can use your eraser to get rid of what you don't want, which is typically the other side of it. And then you can start painting this in to get something you're more looking for. Okay, I think I'm going to just leave this stuff for now. I think we got to just move on, actually. Michael von Den Heuvel, what sort of animation tips would that be, Jake? I'm an environment painter and want to start composing some simple animated elements for looping videos. That's cool. You know what? That's like one of my favorite parts of doing any of this stuff is like painting an environment and then bringing it into After Effects or something. Well, that's kind of cool. That works all right. Let's make this even bigger. These brushes are actually quite large. Let's erase this off a little bit. I'm going to keep. Cool. Okay, I'm going to just keep moving. Let's put this here. Actually, I'm going to put a little light there. Boop. Or brighter. Kind of want to bridge that over a little bit. Okay. See a little purpleness like this. It's cool. It's giving a little bit of detail here and there. Now that technically should be quite cool. So we go here like that for now. Okay, see you later. Thanks for hanging out, Pramod. Okay, all right, let's just keep moving on. Okay, so we've done some of this. I'm not sure if this is good or not, but I'm just playing around. It's kind of just the name of the game. Eventually, we're going to flesh this out with a whole bunch of other stuff. So, okay, so that's one piece. That took forever. This is a foreground piece. Now we'll be able to use that for other things. I guess you can use this as our color guide, though, for the rest of the scene. It's funny though it is funny how mushy this stuff gets. I think like eventually what I'll do is, I don't know if you guys use it, but if there should be the Kyle T. Webster brushes in Photoshop now for free. I think they have the mega pack. I think sometimes what I'll take is I'll take the drawing brushes. And just to like, I'll do a pass over top of everything. I think this is a decent drawing brush. I'll do a pass over everything just to get some like really good highlights and edges on everything. Uh-oh. Okay. I thought it was crashing for a second. Anyways, I sometimes go back in just to get some harder edge details and stuff like that, because you can really lose a lot in the process. But that'll be the next pass. Oh, that's weird. That's a pretty good brush, actually. There's some nice texture on this brush. This is called the Kyle's Drawing Box Animator brush, and it's pretty good. It's got a built-in paper texture, it seems. Like, and I would use something like this just to get some details back in if things start getting too mushy. I gotta be careful though, because this whole thing itself isn't meant to be a giant composition. There's a lot of moving parts to this scene. I always hate my paintings so much. This is just like, looks like garbage to me. But if someone else did it, I'd probably be like, oh, this is pretty good. Something I don't like about that line there, or it's probably because it's like unjustified in some ways. It's not following through in any way. There's a couple areas in this I'm not into, although we're probably going to hide a lot of it. Oh, well, I've always wondered. I'll let you guys have your conversation. Sorry. Stopping. There is something weird. I gotta leave it. I gotta move on. I'm getting too caught up in one area of things when we have a whole painting to deal with. Okay, let's move on to the next. So that was a foreground piece, And eventually, oh, that's the other thing, is what I want to show you really quick is that we would be adding some grass and stuff in front of it. So I'll go to the, I have like a bunch of plants and stuff in the Nature Mega Pack. There's the texture painting brush. We'll keep that out. The rock builder, there's plants. So I've got the mossy clump, and I've got these like little buds and stuff like that. And these are, they're fairly large too. And these are just used to like do like cool little foreground plants like that. Additionally, I also have like these little micro plants, which are cool. In here, you can use these to really add a lot of detail to things. Now, these can be what are used to like help break up. If there's parts really ugly in your painting, like I always have. You can use these to help hide some of the badness. These ones are like, this is designed to kind of flip. But anyways, I'll show you what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some grass because I've been wanting to use some of the grasses in here, which we will be using in After Effects later, but we're just going to put some little grass patches in here. Because I don't want it to look exactly like this. It's got some grass and stuff in there. So we're going to go to the grassy and twigs. I have a grass pack of brushes, and I've got what I have is these like 360 brushes, which I think it's depending on the way you rotate them. Anyways, these you can use to fill up grassy patch. So this is what I do is I usually go 100% 100 on the brush, so it's like fully opaque, and then I'll just go in and paint some stuff. And because if I want a couple of different species of grasses, I might do like, see how I have like different types? I've got the grainy ones, I've got weedy ones. Anyway, so I'll paint a few of these like this. And then let's grab a couple of these other patches. This is more like long grass patches here. Okay, it looks horrible at the moment, but it will come around. And then I'm going to add some just behind this one as well. So that'll be like little patches here and there. This brush works like this. If you go this way, it does that. If you go this way, it does that. And if you do it in circles, you can make little balls. So I'm probably going to do like a little ball kind of patch. And these grasses are taken directly from the silhouettes of the animated grass elements that I've put together so that you can swap these out once you're in After Effects pretty easily with your other things. Okay, I'm going to put one of these guys in there. No, I don't like those. Those ones maybe. Well, that's a little weedy actually. It wouldn't really, chances of you having weedy grass in this area would be pretty unlikely. So this one you can just scrub back and forth. This one goes like this. We just add a little more diversity here. Yeah. Okay, and then I've got this little bushel one. This bushel one, you kind of just go like this. And it creates like little bushels of grasses. Cool. All right. Got lots of little different things in there. There's these little twiggy ones. We have fuzzy grass. This one's a little weird, but it's neat. I'll put sticks and stuff in. This one's more for like going like this. Just kind of fleshing out like a really thin, high detail grass in. About using real textures of moss rocks just to add. Yeah, I have thought about it. I haven't really, I don't do it a lot. I think it's just because I get, I don't know, it's just, I guess I always am like overly challenging myself where I'm like, oh, I'll learn to paint that. It's dumb. I really shouldn't do that. Okay, and this is grass leafy. So I have a couple of these. But this is really high detail. But let's see how it meshes in. So we've got a couple of these little patches of grass. It looks really terrible right now. But what we'll do is we'll take this first one. And we could use this as an alpha channel. We could use it as whatever we want. Usually what I do is just do a solid color to start with. And because it's foreground, we'll warm it up a bit and darken it. And then the one behind here, we'll do the same thing with. We don't need to keep that layer if we don't want. Okay, and then now what we can do, if we want, we can make it a folder, or you can just use a bunch of like adjustment layers on top of it. It's really up to you. It really depends how you like to work. And then we can use our texture brush. Oops, not Rocky Mountains. We need to grab this texture brush. Okay, cool. And now what we can do is just close to the bottoms of these guys. I'll just do a new layer. We'll paint a cooler green. But Hero, it's a good idea. Like I just haven't really done that. I always get hung up on like trying to learn how to paint it. But it is a really good idea. We could actually try some. Oops. Okay, so I'm just gonna grab some of this little. I want to be a little more specific with this. Okay, let's just brown up the bottoms a little bit. It's a pretty fun, simple process, actually. There you go. This part's always more fun for me because it's harder to mess it up. It tends to look better right out of the gate. So I'm just going to think a little bit where my sunlight is and then what color I want my grass to be, or what kind of shades I want it to be. So this is like in the light. Probably would cast a shadow over there, which we can take care of later. This is definitely in sun. Just be a little bit of sun up here. We'll just like put a patch here. The sun in the sun. Right there. And these ones less so. So I might gray off a little bit and cool the green. And put that more back there. Let's darken that a little more. Cool. Okay. There might probably be like a bit of ambient occlusion, or like the grass colors would be accumulating. But let's get some like little reds in there. Cool. Most of the content I do add textures a lot in the first pass of blocking. That's interesting. You know what? That makes sense because you'd kind of be taking care of a lot of your light and dark value and details for sure. Well, we should try it. I'm not properly trained, so I definitely miss out on some of those really important details. Let's cool this off a little bit. Let's see what a purple looks like. It looks okay there. I kind of like the bluish color there, but not so much in this area. Okay, and the other thing which I usually do is we'll take control click this foreground grass, and I'll just transform that selection and put it over here. So let's grab a little patch like that. And then sometimes what I'll do is go like this, and then I'll just paint inside that pass with like a really nice bright warm color. Whoops. Let's go a little more green like that. And so what that does is it gives us this other level of activity going on in the grass. So it feels a bit more, well, let's do it. We'll do it for one of these background ones. Select this and we'll transform, and we'll just grab this one and move it over here because it has sort of a similar vibe. We can go like that and then just press it down there, and we'll just grab some of these lighter colors here and just do this. You can see it kind of adds like another round of texture there. So this would likely cast a bit of shadow on one side of the rock, but it also depends on how far away it is. And let's just do a little bit of backlight on this one here. Like a bit of like the sunlight's coming through the back of it. So brighten it up a little bit. I don't want to go too dark on my grasses. Let's go a little there. Grab a blue. And we'll just take this background one. Oh no, I lost it. Where is it? All right, this one. Just gonna put a little bit in here. Sometimes what I also do is I'll inverse it, so I just press Control-Shift-I, and I'm just gonna drop this, cool this green off a little bit. That's not quite the one I want. So if I do this, what that does is it creates another level of contrast with bits of grasses in it. I go here and I go really dark. Plant that in there. So you see it kind of brings out some new grasses. It's a weird thing. I mean, it's not beautiful or anything, but it takes a bit of time to get this right. I always feel like if I was a little more if I was a better painter, this process would go a lot faster. But it does help. I find it helps like lock some of this stuff down, and make it feel less gunky. This area is still really gunky feeling. It needs a lot of work, but there's only so much time we have for this right now. And we can adjust these too. This is cool about this is we can kind of just move these around. We could even duplicate this and add more of them if we wanted to. Maybe put them in the front right here. Flip it over if you want. Do more little patches, but we're going to just delete that for now. Okay, so the next one, and those are all right. There's probably a little bit, who knows? I don't know. We can work on details for 1,000 years. Let's just quickly paint over this foreground one here. Little patches of light. Okay, I got to go soon. I got to go actually in a few minutes. So unfortunately, we're not going to get as far as I wanted as usual. But that's okay. That's just the way it goes. Okay, so I'll just paint this in. So we'll just put a couple little spots of like light in here. Right, and then the rest will be sort of bits of combinations of darks. Trying not to overthink the actual physics of the scene at this point. Just more trying to make it feel good. We can justify anything, really. It's too warm. So with something like this, what I can do, again, is if I start copying this thing and transforming the selection. I mean, this looks bad right now. I just want to show you a really quick thing we can do using the brushes. I can either do the thing like, again, where I darken this off. Whoops. I darken it off, and I can just sort of paint in some dark areas like that. Or I invert it, or keep it the way it was, whatever I had before. I'll just brighten this up. And I'll just paint some like little light patches here and there. And you'll see in a second, as soon as I undo that, we get this like really nice kind of dense grass thing going on. But you can see, like, when you're dealing with animation layers, you don't want to spend too much time perfecting everything, because what's going to happen is, it might be cooler having it cool like that. What's going to happen is that the layers are going to ruin and hide most of what you're doing. So there's an element of just, you got to kind of just not be precious of anything. Which kind of FDZ school? I'm going to check that out. Thanks, Hero. That'd be really useful for me, actually. I'm just playing a little bit with color, just seeing how it would frame if I try different things. This is the time to experiment for sure. So we could like go for more traditional greens, or we could be a little more crazy and try like purples or whatever else and see how they actually help or hinder the framing. I kind of like the purple, but I feel like it would have to be a touch darker to make it really work. Kind of neat. It's like a little light spot. Sort of like we have this like little bright area. Anyways, it's neat. It's starting to, there's something starting to happen, which is cool, but this is going to take some time. Um, I'm gonna check those videos out. Thanks for suggesting that, Hero. I gotta go, guys, because I have to leave for this thing like right away. I totally forgot. I lost track of time. So I will come back on later today, hopefully, and we can kind of keep working on this painting. Maybe I'll get a little further along so it's not so hideous, and then we'll have something where you can be like, oh, this is actually turning into something that's not horrible. But anyways, I'll talk to you guys later. Thank you so much for hanging out, and we'll see you. And Hero, thanks for the suggestion on the tutorial channel. I will check that out, the school channel. But thanks, guys. I'll talk